Hello and welcome to the 3-time award-winning Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you love adventure, challenge, and hearing from women who share their stories and provide top tips and advice to help you take on your own personal challenges, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. New episodes go live every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, with bonus episodes happening on a Thursday. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron by visiting Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me, with Tough Girl challenges, give shout outs, and recommend other Tough Girl podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I am Caroline Livesey. I am Scottish originally, although you can't tell from my accent. I've been sort of based everywhere, but I am currently living in Mallorca, lucky me, and hopefully getting permanent full residency here by the end of this year, which I come from a background of endurance sports, originally from Ironman. I was a professional Ironman athlete for many years and have sort of branched out into Extreme Triathlon. And now in the last few years into gravel cycling and endurance gravel cycling, ultracycling, non-stop event, and just adventures, mainly with my husband, in sort of all of the endurance sports, really.
You must have been sporty. You must have come from a sporty family.
Yeah, I'm so lucky. I mean, sporty, yes, like my parents played tennis and kind of like they were always like, I guess they weren't athletes or anything like that, but they were always interested in fitness, as it were, but I mean, just a really old-fashioned type of parenting where they just kicked us out of the doors and said, like, get out in the fresh air. My mum's mantra was, it's brightening up, because we lived in Scotland and it was forever raining or drizzly or grey. It's brightening up, get outside, do something. She was very keen on us having that kind of outdoor time. And then I suppose that in my childhood for me was riding horses quite a lot, like looking after other people's, and then eventually, very lucky, was able to have a sort of horse for a little bit. But that just really gave me the tools to get outside. And then school and university, I was always into running and athletics and just anything that was going on the program. But it wasn't until I left university, well, really until later, actually. I was in my late 20s when I started triathlon, and I didn't come from a background of being really good at anything. I was just a bit of an all-rounder and did whatever everybody else was doing to have fun and be part of a team.
Did you ever realize that you had like a knack for endurance, or that you were particularly suited to the longer distances?
I mean, I've always been somebody who's been fit in comparison, I guess, to my peers. I'm not sure I would have classified it as particularly like endurance sports or anything like that at that stage. I mean, I'm talking about, I guess the first time I noticed was I was a very keen rock climber when I was at university. And I spent an awful lot of my time just climbing, indoor, outdoor. I mean, when I was in the UK, I was at Leeds University, and it was always just indoor at the wall during the week, and then going out into the Dales or the Peak District at the weekends. And then I actually spent a year at university in America, in Berkeley, near San Francisco, and that's it's not very close to Yosemite, but it's close enough to drive to Yosemite. And I met some rock climbers while I was there, and they were absolutely life-changing people. Just amazing guys who took me under their wing, and they didn't just rock climb, they ran and they did kayaking and all the adventure outdoor stuff that comes with climbing, I suppose. So I was really lucky because I then just got into this world of doing crazy things outdoors and spending weekends doing expeditions in Yosemite, either rock climbing or walking or whatever it was. And so I think in comparison to them, I was never I wasn't really thinking about endurance sports at that time. And it wasn't until I got to Sandhurst when I was doing my army training that I realized, with all of the endurance activities that you do there, just, tabbing and log runs and weighted things that I was above average compared to even to that cohort of very fit women coming into Sandhurst. And I think that was the first time I thought, oh, maybe I should do something with this.
And were you able to pursue your passion for triathlon through the army? Or was that something that sort of happened after you left the army?
The army definitely gave me a springboard. So I don't think I kind of wanted to toy with triathlon before, but I never had the facilities or the equipment. And then Sandhurst, they have, a triathlon club, they have bikes and wetsuits and stuff. And so actually one of my physical training instructors there was a very keen triathlete. And it was him that saw that I could vaguely swim, that I was pretty fit. I'd never ridden a road bike. And it was him that said to me, come on, let's go out on the road bikes and we can see what you've got. And within a couple of sessions, he said to me, there's not many people that can get on a bike and push that kind of power. You should stick with this. And he kind of took me under his wing then and started me off doing proper bike sessions. I had no idea what I was doing at all. I was a complete novice, really really, really clueless. And I've got a very lovely photo of me doing my first ever triathlon from Sandhurst, and my body type is so different and so unsuited to triathlon because I've been doing so much army fitness, which just gives you a lot of dense muscle and bulk because you've got to be robust, right? And so that was quite funny. But yeah, I suppose that gave me the springboard and the interest and the passion in the sport. And then it wasn't until I met my husband while I was in the army. He was a triathlete, and I started to take it a little bit more seriously then, but still just toying with it at Olympic distance level. And it wasn't until I left the army and I had time to really dedicate myself to consistent training, and I wasn't then being called away on exercise or operations or not able to train for weeks at a time. So once I got consistent with it, then that was when I was able to do something with it.
I always think of triathlon as, especially being a professional triathlete, as almost like a relatively sort of newish thing to be able to be sponsored to do that. And so were you sort of one of the first sort of professional triathletes, and how was that?
I definitely wasn't one of the first. I actually think that it's progressed so much to the point that it's at now, even from, my first pro year was 2015. So I suppose 10 years. It's changed. It's unrecognizable now, really, from where it was then, in so many ways. But I was really lucky that I could have a full-time job and still manage to fit in the training around that to kind of fund it. I definitely didn't make a living from it at the beginning. I'm not sure I do now. Because although I've branched out to other things, I suppose I still have a professional license. I don't race professionally on the kind of mainstream triathlon circuit anymore.
And actually, I'd love to talk. You've done some very extreme triathlons, which I absolutely love. So you've done Canadaman, Norseman, Celtman, and Patagonman, which you've done sort of multiple times. When you were first doing your first sort of extreme triathlon, was that Canadaman?
Yes.
A, what made it so extreme? And B, what was it like sort of, taking on this new challenge?
Well, it's funny because this was 2019. And actually, just to sort of rewind a little bit, just as a bit of backstory, in 2017, I had my breakthrough race at Ironman, Texas, as a professional triathlete. It was definitely a springboard race. I was so excited. I'd finally kind of found this level of performance that had been training towards. And I had this race in Texas. I was so excited. And I came back to the UK and I was like, oh, this year's going to be amazing. I've got this race coming up, blah, blah, blah. And 10 days after Texas, I got attacked when I was out on my bike by somebody, a driver who had road rage, essentially. And he rugby tackled me from my bike. It's a longer story than that, but this is the end of it. Was he rugby tackled me from my bike while I was going about 35 kilometers an hour, and I flipped over and hit the road and broke my sacrum, so broke my pelvis. And from that point, what then ensued was a long recovery process, multiple stress fractures in my pelvis as I was coming back to racing, and never quite hitting that same level of performance again for that type of race. So it kind of cut my professional, I guess, my long course professional performance career short, but it then gave me this opportunity for other things, which looking back now, I think everything happens for a reason. And that day, while at the time it was really, really hard to swallow, was a real turning point in my life and actually has given me so much growth as a result. But to go back to your question, what happened then was, as I was coming back to racing, I did Ironman Frankfurt, and I had a really bad experience with the cold. And it was just one of those freak days. Frankfurt can be really hot, but it can also be quite chilly. And it was one of those freak days where on race day, I think the air temperature was about 8 degrees in the morning, and the water temperature was borderline between wearing a wetsuit and not wearing a wetsuit. And they decided that the professionals would not wear wetsuits and the age group athletes would wear wetsuits. So we did the swim, but a lot of the professional, well, men and women, got really cold in the swim. And at one point, I just remember in the swim thinking, I'm not going to make it through this swim. My core temperature's dropping and I'm getting a little bit sort of panicky here. And I put my head up and I looked around and there was nobody, as in a water safety boat, there was nobody anywhere near me. And I thought, well, I've got to keep swimming because I can't just tread water here. I'm going to get even colder. And so I got out of the swim, made it to the finish, got out of the swim, and just was on autopilot. And there's footage and photos of me coming through transition. My husband was there watching, and my lips are blue. My eyes are like staring off into the distance. I mean, I was borderline hypothermic and I should not have carried on racing. I was sort of wobbling all over the place and a bit confused, but I think you just go in autopilot. Anyway, I got on my bike. Lots of girls stopped in transition or got on the bike and then stopped after a little bit of time on the bike and said, no, that's it for me. I'm too cold, basically. I was shivering uncontrollably on the bike. I somehow managed to get myself warm again. But knowing what I know now, I knew nothing at that point about hypothermia or cold water exposure. And knowing what I know now, it was a big risk, really, what I did, because I was essentially pumping all that cold blood into my core. So I would have got rapid after drop as I went on the bike, and actually with the wind chill at 8 degrees in a tri-suit that was wet, I could really have, come across. But anyway, I got through the race, but I then had a real fear of cold water as a result. And so fast forward on to, I guess I was back to fitness in 2019 and I was looking at doing Ironman Ireland. And I had a race before that to prepare for it, which was a 70.3 in Barcelona. And it just happened to be a cold day. And again, Barcelona is not known for being a kind of cold place. And it's a May race and it normally is fine, but it was a cold day and I got on the bike and I just absolutely shut down. My whole body shut down and there was mentally nothing I could do. I went to sleep on the bike essentially and ended up looking around into this forest thinking, I could just go for a little lie down in the forest while I was on the bike racing and thinking, okay, right, I need to stop. So I stopped, got my way back to safety. So I DNF'd that race and my husband said to me, you can't go to Ironman Ireland because it's going to be cold and wet. I mean, it's Ireland, right? It's going to be cold and wet. It's going to rain and you're not going to finish and we're going to waste our time and money going there. And very, very reluctantly, after a few days, I said to him, this race that I have trained all year for, I'm not going to be able to do in this state. So I'm going to go and do XTRI in Canada, which at the time, Canadaman was in July and it was a warm race. It was a warm swim, bit chilly in the morning on the bike, but ultimately perfect temperatures, like temperate 20 to 25 degrees on the run. So yeah, that's kind of why I ended up doing Canadaman really fit, because that fitness I'd intended to spend on Ironman Ireland. And actually I went to Canada really fit. won the race, but the main thing was I just enjoyed it so much. And I thought, I'm not sure I can go back to just doing a boring old Ironman again.
I love the fact it almost like starts out pretty well, to be honest, like there's just so many different extreme elements of that story, just like dealing with the trauma of that road rage attack, the recovery from having a broken pelvis, getting back to fitness. And then I'm thinking, in fact, I'm thinking like Canadaman. Oh, that's good. That's going to be really brutal because of the weather. But then compare it to, some of these other races that you've done. You're like, oh no, that was the good choice, the warmer choice
Yeah.
that you've taken on. How are you with the cold now? Or but you've done Norseman, which is
Yeah.
Norway.
Okay. So this is the story. I went to Canadaman, won the race, and was at the prize, like the award ceremony the next day. As the winner, I got to pull out of the hat. What they do is they award 2 slots for Norseman, which is the Extreme Triathlon World Championships as well. And it's like the most famous race on the XTRI calendar. Everybody wants a place for Norseman in the XTRI world. It's like very, very difficult to get a place. It's a lottery system. Most people apply for like 10 years and never get one. So getting one as a kind of freebie at a race, people get really, really excited. I didn't know any of this. So I'm on the stage and he says to me, right, you need to pull 2 names out of the hat for people who are getting these slots for Norseman, 2 women. And then the male winner pulled out 2 men. And so I pulled out these names and I couldn't believe it. I pulled out the first one. I read the name out. I forgot her name now. She was a lovely girl. And she literally was beside herself. She jumped up. She was screaming and shouting. She was like on the table, just like the most happy I've ever seen. And same with the second lady. And looked down on this situation. And I had also, by winning Canadaman, automatically qualified to go to Norseman with a slot at Norseman. And I had said already to the organizer, I'm not taking it. I'm not going to Norseman. It's way too cold for me. And I looked at these girls and I thought, well, hang on a minute. If they can do it and they're so excited about going, what's wrong with me? Why am I not able to do this? And there was a shift in my mindset then to, I'm just going to take this slot and I'm going to deal with it. And I'm going to get myself there in a fit state to actually race it, because I can't for the rest of my life be telling myself that I'm bad in the cold. And by doing that, exclude myself from all these amazing races. And what then ensued was a very, very long process of getting myself to the point where I was 100% happy to strip off to a swimsuit and jump into 13-degree cold water and have a lovely swim.
So let's talk about that transition, because psychologically, so everyone listening, I hate the cold with a passion. Like it's
Do
not
you?
it's not my jam at all. I purposely pick warm, hot places to do my adventures and challenges. And I've had friends who are like, oh, let's, come up, why don't you come up to Scotland in like November and we'll do some winter hiking? And I'm just like, and I'll say yes because I really want to do it and really want to spend time with them. I remember one year and I got invited and I was just like, I messaged her 3 days before. Like I was just like, because I hate letting people down. I was like, I'm just so sorry. I can't face the thought of being that cold. It's going to make me miserable. But the place I'm working at the moment has got like a cryotherapy chamber. So you can go in where it's like -86. So I'm doing that like a couple of times a week. And I feel as though I'm actually getting better at handling the cold, because I'm almost like, well, no, I'm adapting. I'm increasing the amount of brown fat I've got in my body. What was your process? Yeah, to be happy with the
Just
cold?
a quick question though. Like,
Yeah.
what have you had experiences where you've been really miserable in the cold?
Oh, so many. So many.
Okay, like
so many. Yeah. Like I even Southwest Coast Path last year, I was walking with Zillang Northam, and we're going up and down the hills. The wind is blowing in, so you've got the wind chill. That you get to that point where your waterproofs have given up. And it's like you also mentally, like like when you came out of your race, you're like, well, I can't. Like, sorry, when you were swimming, it's like, well, I can't stop moving because I'm going to get like hypothermic. And it was the same when I was walking. I had to say to Zoe, I'm so sorry. I've got to just keep going. Like I can't, like no stop, no breaking. I'm going to go really, really bad. And then I had another another, like where my lips had gone blue. I was in New Zealand crossing multiple rivers. The rain was driving, it was freezing, and it was just like there's no shelter, there's nowhere I can put my tent up. Like this is getting really serious now. Like I'm like going to be in trouble. But yeah.
So I'll talk about the process I did in a bit, but I think there's a difference, and just because you're cold adapted doesn't mean you don't get cold. And I think it's recognizing that there are measures and, you know, things you can put in place, and there are preparations you can do. But at some point, your body will still get cold if you put it into certain scenarios. And it's recognizing the management of those early enough to either be able to do something about it, or to recognize that, like you beforehand, I'm not going to be able to do those things in that situation, so I'm not doing it.
What I would say is what I found really interesting is when I first started doing the cryo, so you take your temperature before you go in.
Yeah.
It's you know, for most people, it's normally around 30, 30, 31, 32 degrees. When I come out of the cryo 3 minutes later, my temperature would be around 5.5 degrees. So I'd had a massive temperature drop. Whereas now I'm around 11, 12 degrees. So I don't get as cold as I was doing previously. But it's quite interesting when you compare it with other people's, like other people's temperature drops. And it was almost like a recognition, like it's not just me faking this, it's like that's how quickly my body like drops,
adapts.
So it's really interesting. But what was your process? Yeah
Definitely. But I mean, like, if people are interested, there's some great studies on this, and there's one that came out that I read not so long ago about channel swimmers, and they did just that. They had internal monitoring for people's body temperatures, and they tracked who was able to swim for the longest and what was actually happening inside their bodies and what was happening beforehand to enable them to swim for longer compared to people who couldn't. And it is really fascinating how once you're adapted, your core temperature stays a lot higher than if you're somebody who's just not used to it at all. Basically, for me, I just approached it as mentally, like, if other humans can do this, I mean, there are people that swim at the North Pole. So ultimately, physically, I know this is possible. And I came at it from that perspective, like, there has to be a way physically for me to adapt to this. So I have to get on board with it mentally. And actually getting on board with it mentally was the hardest bit for me, because I didn't want to get into cold water. And I came back here to Mallorca, and it might surprise people to know, but the Mediterranean does actually get pretty cold this time of year. It can be 12 degrees, 11 degrees. And I came back to Mallorca after Christmas 2019 and said, okay, that's it. Every couple of days, I'm going down to the ocean. I'm just going to get in. And even if I can only do 5 seconds, I'm going to get in. And started to have cold showers as well. And not long, like at this point, really just like turning it onto cold and going, oh my God, that's cold. And then turning it back up again. But for me, it was a process of mentally relaxing into the cold. So as the cold hits you, for example, when you turn your shower to cold, your automatic reaction is to tense up and to take that gasp. And if you can, like, really consciously breathe out as that cold hits you, or as you're getting into something cold, breathe out and think about physically relaxing, then you are able to kind of do it for longer, and it isn't as shocking. And those sensations, because your body is wired to go get away from that, but actually it's not dangerous to you. It's not like hot. It's not like you're going to burn yourself. So if you can reprogram your mind to think, actually, the cold's really nice, just enjoy it, absorb it, be here in this moment, and those painful feelings are actually okay. And after a while, they don't really happen. So you learn, your body and your mind learn that it's okay. And once that happens, you can really start the physical adaptation process much more quickly. So I think originally for me, it was just learning that it's okay to be cold, because we
Yeah.
spend so much of our time warm now. Like we literally move around in a warm environment the whole time. If it's remotely cold outside, we get into our cars and we put the heating on full blast. Central heating's on, like we're never cold. Whereas in, I guess, caveman times, as winter came, it gradually got colder and we gradually got colder and adapted. So your body has that ability to adapt over time, but it needs time and it needs to be cold. And it was just learning that. And actually, as I started to do it, I came to crave it. And I'm sure other listeners have had this with cold water swimming, because it's well documented. But it's so invigorating, I think is the word. And you just start to crave it. And even now I'll crave it. And I still do quite a lot of cold water swimming. But, as that happened, I was like, oh, I'm not only doing this because I want to and I physically need to do it to do these races. I actually want to do it. I actually want to go cold water swimming and I need it.
With the cryo as well, it does actually get a little bit addictive, because you get a dopamine hit from doing it, and there's also there's more science behind it as well, especially with regards to like the brain and your neurons. From doing a hard thing, like when you don't want to do it, it's good for your neuroplasticity and stuff. So it is, but you know, really good for you, like for actually thinking, no, like let's not close this part of my life off. I've got to make some changes. I've got to do some adaptations. And I've spoken to another woman who got a place at Norseman as well, and she initially also didn't realize like the significance of being able to get a place until all her friends were like, no, you need to do this. Like this is like you said, like, this can be like a 10-year waiting list to try and get in. But how was your Norseman experience? Because I know you go on a ferry and you jump off the back of a ferry, and it's extreme, isn't it? It's very grueling.
It's a really tough race. If anyone actually is interested, just a little plug if you don't want it. We did make a film about my Norseman experience, and it does have a bit of Celtman, a bit of Nepal, a bit of some really crazy things that happened that year, 2022. I did Celtman, Norseman and Patagonman all in the same year. And I almost did an extreme triathlon in the Himalayas as well. That's another story. But yeah, so Norseman. So I got to Norseman in 2022, because obviously it never happened in 2020 because of, well, all the things. Pandemic hit,
you could say COVID.
nobody did any racing. So 2022 was the year that I finally got to do Norseman. And by that stage, the cold did not bother me. So I wasn't really worried about the swim, which was amazing, because had I perhaps even gone in 2020, I probably still would have been pretty anxious about it. But by that point, I was like, it's going to be fine. Gosh, what to say about Norseman? It's such a remote place where the race starts. It's a logistical nightmare, that race. I mean, for a reason, because XTRIs, when they're point to point like that, are, it's a journey. It's an amazing journey through an incredibly remote part of the world, and that's the fun of it. But it does make it really quite a task. And you have a support crew with you. And luckily for me, we had a lovely Norwegian family who were helping me as my support crew, because my husband was filming me, so he wasn't able to do support as well. So I had this lovely team of Norwegians, and they, Britta, who was actually doing a PhD, and I was one of her sort of research candidates, should we say, on like pain and suffering in female endurance athletes. So she was there to like observe my pain and suffering during the day. So I had this wonderful team. My experience was, it was freezing. Like, there's no getting away from that. The swim was fine. I didn't really get cold in the swim. I think the water was 13 degrees. It's a beautifully clear board. It's just the most incredible swim. I absolutely loved it. I had a fantastic swim. And then you immediately get on the bike and you climb this probably half an hour or 40-minute climb. And it was pouring with rain. But because you're climbing, you get warm pretty quickly. And I had all the clothes on, all the clothes. I when I came out of the swim, I put all my clothes on, lots of layers, everything. And there were people going out on the bike in tri suits, and I was looking at them thinking, you are completely crazy. that is one of the things for me with extreme triathlon is I go into it prepared in terms of adaptation, but also I'm not there to be uncomfortable because I don't perform when I'm uncomfortable. So I'm there to make it as comfortable as possible so that I can perform. So all the clothes on, out on the bike, and yeah, you get up onto this plateau, and I just remember my husband, he's standing beside the road to can me nutrition. He's in full on like winter expedition gear. It's blowing a gale. It's probably -2 or -3 wind chill, and I'm flying past on a bike in a triathlon. It's just all very bizarre. But then I got onto the run. I mean, the bike was okay. There were a couple of times where I got cold extremities, so I couldn't eat or drink because I couldn't take my bottle out of the cage, and I couldn't open gels and that kind of stuff. But it didn't last very long, and it was only really on the descents. And then when I was climbing, I'd get warm again, so it was manageable. And then actually I got on the run and I was in shorts and t-shirt. And that's one of the things about extreme triathlon is that the temperature variations can be so wild during the race. And your body has to be able to go from being in -2 to being in 25. And you have to be able to maintain a very good core temperature through that. Because if you go from having a really low core temperature to suddenly overheating, then that just expends so much energy, and your race just completely blows up.
I mean, let's talk about race strategy. Are you working with a coach? How do you figure out your race strategy? What does that look like? Are you doing it on feelings? Are you doing it on timings? How do you know when to push? How do you know when to hold back? Mentally, what's going in with that race strategy?
I've been self-coached almost my entire triathlon career. My husband coached me, I guess, at the very start when I was doing Olympic distance. And then I toyed with a couple of coaches, but I'm not very coachable. When I have a coach, I tend to execute the plan regardless of how I feel, because if something's written down for me, I just feel like I've got to live up to it. Whereas if I'm self-coaching, I'm very much relaxed about listening to my body, making decisions based on how I feel. And that's really important when you're training for endurance sports. Well, for any sport, really, isn't it? It's being able to listen to your body. But bear in mind, by the time I got to doing XTRI, I mean, over the course of my triathlon career, I've done 24 or 25 Ironman distance events. So I was pretty experienced, and I just go on feel now. I don't look at power. I look at time when I'm on the bike because it's important to know that for pacing, for kind of fueling, that kind of thing. But I very much rely on my body giving me the cues and knowing what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be in the right zone for those sorts of races. So that's not very helpful for people. But that's how I do it.
No. But you're podiuming. That's the word.
I don't know, yeah.
You're getting placed in these races. You're winning these races. So when you have to take it up a notch, take it to the next level, how do you do that?
Do you mean in terms of pushing?
Yeah, so you're already pushing really, really hard, and you're on the run now, and you know that if you want to get that place, you've got to push harder, you've got to give more, you've got to step it up.
Yeah.
Is there a technique that you're using, or are you already going flat out and that actually there isn't anything else to give? You're already giving everything, or do you have like another level that you can push to or get to if you need to?
So I always put it like this. My race is with myself. And it always has, I say it always has been. It probably wasn't originally, but certainly since I started Extreme Triathlon, it always has been. One of the things about Extreme Triathlon is when you're in the race, certainly for me, I'm usually out the front of the swim. And I'm usually out the front off the bike, or, there might be some other people around me on the bike or slightly ahead, but that's where my strong points are. And I'm usually getting caught on the run. So when you're doing a point to point race, you don't really know, because there's no out and backs. You can't see your competitors. You're out on your own, and nobody's giving you splits, because if they're going to give you splits, they have to wait for that person behind you to come through and then drive and catch you up. Sometimes that does happen. And in the last Patagonman, I did have a few splits because they had a bit more timing. But ultimately, for example, at Canadaman, I was in front all day. Now, I ended up winning that race by 12 seconds. And that was a 12.5 hour race or something. And I had no idea that Lynn Bissett, who was the girl that was eventually second, was literally catching me so fast on the final section of the run that if I had stopped to look around, she'd have gone past me. And that experience, I think, at the original Canadaman taught me you've just got to give it everything all day. And I go into races now and I don't really care about other people, who's racing, what splits they're doing, where they are in the race. All I care about is I want to get to that finish line. And I want to know that I gave it absolutely everything I had in every moment during that day. And that's why I do the sport, because it's those times when you're asked that question during the race, are you going to back off now? Because your body is telling you to back off. Or are you going to really keep doing everything you can, everything in your power to give your best in this moment? And I want to get to the finish and know that I did everything in my power. Every moment, every difficult question that was asked of me during that race, I suffered and I gave it everything. And if I get to the finish line and I'm first or 10th and I've given it everything that I can on the day, then I'm happy.
You mentioned during training that, you're self-coach, you sort of make decisions on how you feel. And then, a lot of the times your brain can be working against you, because it can be saying, let's just quit early. Oh, go on, let's go. There's you can buy a big bar of Galaxy. There's a new K-drama on Netflix, or a new, TV show to watch. And there's a nice fire. You can have a lovely cup of hot chocolate at home on the couch. Let's just not. It's easy to make those decisions. And then when you're racing, you're racing for 12 hours plus, which is a super long time. And actually, you can't, if your brain ever says, oh, let's take it down a notch. How do you keep your thoughts to keep you motivated for those 12 plus hours, so that you are constantly giving your best, that you are constantly pushing yourself, and that there is no let up, so that when you cross that finish line, I really have given it my all? Like, are there any tips or tricks? Like, do you go to a different place mentally? Are you able to explain that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's something which I have studied, practiced, and I guess taught as well to the athletes that I coach for many years. And it's not something that comes easily, I don't think, to anybody, maybe to some people, but in fact, yeah, I do know a few crazy people that just are able to completely leave themselves and push so hard. Mostly they're like Olympians. But I think it's one of those things that you have to practice. And you talk about training. One of the things that we do in training, I say we, me and my husband, and we do, and we give to our athletes in training, is sessions that really do challenge you mentally, not just physically, but mentally. And they ask those questions of you so that you have practice in hitting that point where your body says, no, let's just sit on the couch now. It's time, it's too much. And you have practice at going, actually, I'm going to overcome that, and I'm going to see what I've got in this moment. And is my body stronger than my mind thinks it is? Which without a doubt it will be. And if you have practiced that in training, it gives you a confidence, it gives you a touchstone, so that when you go into your race, you go in with confidence because you're relaxed going into the race, knowing that whatever the race throws at you, you've probably dealt with worse in training. in, not in the same way, because you can never fully simulate a race, but you've dealt with enough things in training that you've had the experience to go into that race and know, okay, well, whatever's thrown at me today, I can probably deal with it. And then in the race, I think it's just being able to draw on those experiences and to step outside yourself. And I feel like when I'm in a race and those questions are asked of me and everything's hurting, it's usually on the run, isn't it? But towards the end of the bike as well. And for example, Patagonman, one of the hardest things about that race is that the very last section of the bike, you always have a headwind and you're already exhausted. It's, however many hours into the bike. For me, that bike took, I think, 5.5 hours or something. So it's the last hour of that. You're facing this headwind that slows you down so much that you feel like you're barely moving. And it's that point where your body's like, oh, just sit up. Your back's really sore and your shoulders are aching and your legs are tired. You just want to sit up and come off the aero position and just like relax and just pedal slowly. But of course, if you do that, if you sit up, this headwind, you're just going to not move. So you've got to really fight to stay in that aero position and fight to keep pushing. And I think that those moments, you have to be able to step outside yourself and say, how are you going to look back on this? If you sit up now and give up, how are you going to feel about that tomorrow? What do you want to be able to reflect on that moment? And that for me is a driving force, because I want to be able to look back on that race and know I gave it my best. And in that moment where I just wanted to quit, I didn't quit. I carried on and I got everything out of myself, because I didn't need to quit. All it was my body saying, you're tired.
I love hearing about the mental side of races and challenges like this, because it's when you look at what humans can do and like the challenges, the swimming, the running, the cycling, putting it all together, adding in mountains and headwinds and competition. It's just absolutely fascinating, sort of discussing that drive to commit and to do the training, but to get out there and to just push yourself to these absolute extremes. And so do you just want to share a little bit more about, because your husband Mark, he's a documentary and filmmaker, and you mentioned a couple of the films. Are these all on YouTube, or where's the best place that people can go and watch these shows?
Yeah, you can watch them all on YouTube, and his YouTube channel is called The Brick Session. But they're also on Amazon Prime, quite a few of them. So the Norseman one is called A Day of Extremes, and that's on Amazon Prime. And then Patagonman is also on Amazon Prime. And then there's one called Transcordilleras, which is a ultracycling gravel race that we did last year. And we're actually going back to do this year in a few weeks' time in Colombia. And that is also on Amazon Prime. And there's one other that I can't put my finger on right now that's also on Amazon Prime. But yeah, they're all on YouTube. There's quite a few documentaries on YouTube. And I do talk a bit about this. Yeah. And, you're talking about the training. I think one of the things for me about this sport that I'm very lucky is that I just love it. I'm doing what I love. So going out training for me is not a chore. And I'm not saying every single day, every single session is amazing, but I love all of the three sports. I love going to the gym. I love running. I love swimming. I really love riding any bike in any situation. So I don't feel like it's, I don't feel like I'm overcoming an awful lot really there to do the training.
It's awesome that you love it so much, and that definitely comes out. And I'll share all of those links as well. And you're also on social media. What's your social media handle? Where can people find out more about you?
Instagram is the best place, I think, at caroline.livesey.
Awesome. I'll add that in as well. And you do have a connection to Nepal as well. Do you want to share more about your connection to Nepal, what you're doing over there?
Yeah. So like I said, in 2022, we went over to Nepal to do a race, which we didn't end up doing. And the story about why we didn't end up doing it is in our film, Norseman, A Day of Extremes. But essentially, I got really quite sick and got casevaced by helicopter from Pokhara to Kathmandu. And during that whole process, we were staying at a homestay in Pokhara, and the guy and his family, Bishnu and Laxmi and their family, who we were staying with, he was very, very kind during the time that I was very sick. And we formed a real connection with him and his family. And I guess during the time where we were recuperating and staying with him afterwards, we got talking about why there were so many children that we'd noticed that were on the streets during the day when it was like school time. Why were they not at school? My husband particularly comes from a very poor background, council estate England kind of background, and recognises the importance of education for lifting people out of poverty and out of those kind of situations. He was really concerned about these children. Why are they not being looked after? Why are they not going to school? For him, it was one of the only meals that he had in his day was the school meal. So I think he was also looking at it from that perspective, who's looking after them if they're not going to school? Well, who's feeding them during the day? And so we discovered through Bishnu that the education in Nepal, while it should be free, there's a constitution saying that there's rights to education, that it's just not. It's the country doesn't have enough money for the schools to be able to provide free schooling. And families have to be able to afford uniforms and books, and also just releasing their children to go to school when they're at home. They've got things that need doing, and harvests and crops and animals to look after, and all those things, especially up in the mountains. And so a lot of children just are not able to go to school. So we said to Bishnu, well, can we help? Is there anything we can do? Like, how much does it cost to send a child to school? And we found out that it's something ridiculous, like $350 a year to send a kid to school, which is so small. It's such a small amount for somebody from the Western world. And that will put a child through school, fees, uniform, books, everything for a year. So we said, well, this is crazy. Can we find some children and help at least, a couple of kids to get to school that wouldn't otherwise be able to? And that's where it started. But it's captured the imagination of lots of very, very kind donors. And we've raised a lot of money. It's just over $5,000 or something that we've raised. But that is a lot of money for these children. We've been able to put 2 children through 2 years of school now. They're in their 3rd year. That wouldn't have otherwise been able to go to school. And we've been able to also help at primary school, which when Bishnu first came to us about it, this primary school had literally nothing. It was just a building, a concrete shell. They had no warmth. The kids had no desks. They didn't even have shoes, some of them. They had no uniforms. So obviously attendance rates were low. The kids were ill all the time. They didn't have fresh drinking water. They didn't have a toilet. And it's just heartbreaking to see these small children in that situation. So we've been able to help that primary school to get the basic infrastructure. And that's an ongoing project. But like I said, it's been so amazing that we've had so many donations that I am now able to start turning it into a formal charity. And that's the process I'm going through at the moment, which is completely new to me, trying to register a charity to become, I guess, a formal organisation.
It's fantastic though, like amazing. What an incredible thing to do.
Yeah, it's been, it's amazing. I'm just bowled over by the donations that we get from people. Mark and I just are so incredibly grateful to, even just small amounts of money, but goes such a long way over there. And we're really excited to get back there in the end of this year and visit the kids and the projects that we're doing.
Like heading back at the end of this year, is there anything the listeners or that we can do in advance of that? Is it just sort of donating to the charity once it's set up?
You can donate now. So we always had a GoFundMe page, and that's where we still take the donations at the moment. And all I will do is once the charity is set up, I will change the place where people donate so that it goes into a different fund, I guess, for the charity directly. But the GoFundMe page is still up and running. I can share that link with you. There's all the information on there about what we've done so far and the kids we're supporting. And you can just continue to donate to that page for the foreseeable future until, I guess, halfway through this year, I'll get the charity website and everything up and running.
Fantastic. I will add the links to the charity page, to the donate page, so that people can get involved and support the children over there. And Caroline, I would love for you to have the final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women who just want to take it to the next level, who want to be a bit more extreme, entering into events, which is, currently outside their comfort zone, but they want to take that step outside of their comfort zone. Apart from just do it, what's a piece of advice that you would like to share? And you can take that in any direction that you would like.
I think one of the things that often stops us as women is, I think specifically women, it's quite often we'll look around and we'll think, I can do that. She's amazing. I can do that. And it was very similar for me when I looked at Norseman and things before I decided that I was going to go in that direction. I couldn't do that. It's too hard. It's too cold. And the most important thing you can do with any challenge in life is set your mind to it. Because even if you don't 100% believe at that moment that you can do it, if you set your mind to it and you say, well, what would be the process for me to get there if I was going to do it? How would I get used to cold water? How would I improve my mountain climbing skills? How would I start becoming a better swimmer? And it's those small things that you can then build on, build your confidence, but build your self-belief and break down those barriers of like false beliefs that you have that will then enable you to kind of push yourself forward.
Absolutely. Set your mind to it. Caroline, thank you so much for sharing so many awesome experiences that you've been through, and just best of luck with all your future adventures and challenges. We'll be able to watch you on YouTube and Amazon Prime, and just, thank you for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing more of your journey.
No, thank you so much, Sarah. It's been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Hey, tribe, how you're doing? I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Caroline and it's inspired you to think about your next challenge, whether that is taking on a triathlon. Now, if you're thinking, I really do want to stretch my comfort zone, I really do want to commit, I really do want to take on an Ironman, then do you know what? Why not? Why not? Go for it. Continue listening to the amazing women who've done triathlons on the Tough Girl podcast. Listen to their stories, figure out how they made it fit into their lives, figure out what tips and tricks you can use from them to apply for your own life. So the starting place is, well, to be fair, you've already taken the first step. You are listening to the Tough Girl podcast. You're listening to women who have done triathlons. If you visit toughgirlchallenges.com, on the website, there is a dedicated page related to triathletes. And on there, we have spoken to a wide range of women who have undertaken this challenge. So Naomi Rumble, she's overcoming barriers and redefining what an athlete looks like. We've got Prue Young, she's a triathlete and critical care flight paramedic, sharing her journey as an MS warrior and competing in the Ironman World Championships in Kona. During this episode, we talked about Norseman. We've spoken with Frankie Forzoni, who shares more about her mental health struggles and how she became a Norseman Extreme Triathlon finisher. We've spoken with Linda Blakely. She's an incredibly inspiring journey. Who's done an Ironman, who's also summited Everest and Lhotse and rode the Atlantic Ocean solo, but the Ironman was the base of her fitness. Teresa Frost, she's 68-year-old Ironman, European aquabike champion, smallholder, wife of over 40 years, mum of 2, grandma to 3, proving the age and a double hip replacement on No Reasons to Slow Down. We've also spoken to experts as well. So Alex Larson, she's a dietitian and triathlete. She shares more about fueling endurance athletes for peak performance and personal success. We've spoken with, we've spoken to so many. Regina Kenny, she's a ultra runner and 2-time Ironman finisher. She's the first person in South Africa to finish a full Ironman in a hijab. She believes that your life choices should never be a limiting factor in your goals and achievements. So don't change yourself, change the game. We've spoken with Jennifer Price. She talks more about her journey from being an army officer to an extreme endurance athlete, 12 challenges in 12 months, including an Ironman. She also completed a multi-stage desert ultramarathon. She climbed Mount Aconcagua and she did a 1,000-mile self-supported Land's End John O'Groats journey. Donna Donna McConnell, she is known as the Iron Empress, an Iron Woman who did Barcelona in 2021. She's working to increase female participation in Ironman races. We've got Angela White, aka the Running Granny, who completed Joggle 875 miles at 60 years old in 18 days, 10 hours and 3 minutes. We've also, there's so many. I keep scrolling through like, oh yeah, we've spoken to her, we've spoken to her, we've spoken to her. We've spoken to professional triathletes such as Fenella Langridge. She shares more about her life as working as a professional triathlete, competing in over 17.3 distance. We've also spoken to Laura Marshall, who's the first solo Australian woman to complete one of the world's toughest ultra triathlons, the Enduroman Arch to Arc Challenge as well. Kate Swoboda, she's the author of The Courage Habit, sharing more about how to accept your fears, release the past and live your courageous life. Lots and lots and lots of women sharing their journeys into Ironman, how they started, the challenges they faced, the barriers that they overcame. If you're looking for a new challenge and you're thinking Ironman is it, commit. This is your sign. This is the voice telling you can do this, but you're also the person who needs to do it. You have to do it for yourself. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all of the incredible patrons supporting the work that I'm doing. If you want to support the mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media, please do visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. I really do appreciate that financial support. You can sign up as a monthly patron or an annual patron. If you are not in a financial position to support, I get it, totally understand, but I would love for you to tell one friend. Tell one friend today about the Tough Girl Podcast. And if you're like, I don't have any friends, Sarah, that's fine, if that's no problem. But maybe you have social media. If you have social media, tag it on social media. That would be amazing. You can also tag me as well at Tough Girl Challenges, and then I can reshare, because obviously I promote all the incredible women, but I'm always going to be banging the drum for women in adventure and the world of adventure and sports. But it makes more of an impact if it's other people sharing the story, and when I reshare it, 'cause it's like it's not just me shouting all the time. It's like other voices sharing why they enjoy listening to the Tough Girl Podcast, how it's changed their life, why they're inspired by the incredible women out there living these lives, committing to these adventures and taking on these different challenges. You can do it as well. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.